Hello, friends and colleagues. Thank you for joining Second Tuesday Events for Event Professionals. This is our third episode in this series designed for event professionals by event professionals. The purpose of today's broadcast is to focus on event sustainability. And we're going to hear from two very respected professionals, skilled both in events and skilled in sustainability. Before I launch into the program, I just thought it would be interesting to look at what some of the global headlines have been. We see headlines about sustainability with regard to weather changes in Brazil and in France. And then we see headlines about how organizations have implemented sustainable practices into their business, for example, in South Africa and in New York. And then there were several publications that just had no mention of sustainability. And the three that we see here in the upper right corner, I did a search through recent times of what was available online, and there was no mention. And the most interesting that I found was that sustainability and ecology is now being used as a political tool, as we can see here from the Moscow Times in Russia and the Guardian in the UK. Yeah, let's start with our first guest. And she is the CEO of Global Green Events, a sustainability consultancy located in Malta. She has some 15 years of international experience. She's lived all over the world. And she is an established member and representative of the Sustainability and Social Impact Committee at the Events Industry Council. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Gail Murphy. And with that, Gail, let's start off and just get your perspective in terms of sustainability, where it is in the events industry.
Sure, thanks. Thanks for the intro there. It's super nice to be here, and thank you for the invite today. It's great to be here amongst these beautiful people. So where are we in the event industry? I mean, we're not where we were 15 years ago, that's for sure. I feel that as an industry, we have become much more aware, mostly because of our stakeholders, I believe, of the importance of sustainability, and also obviously for the kind of climate change narrative that's going on globally, that we're becoming more aware of the impacts that we are creating here on the planet. But specifically as well, we're having a lot more interest from stakeholders, from buyers, from clients, from organizations that are wanting to create the events, sponsor the events, be part of the events, invest in the events, that are calling for more sustainability. And that has obviously had a huge reflection on the supply chain and the service providers and those that are actually in charge of organizing events. Now, I obviously started up as an event organizer internationally for a kind of 10 to 15 years. And even though I was incredibly conscious or what I would consider myself to be passionate about sustainability, it always was kind of at the bottom of my list of things to do, no matter how hard I tried. So hence me starting to do sustainability for other event producers. And I think that where we are in the industry now is a stage of awareness and also a stage of action. So, no longer is it kind of something that is a nice to have or something that we could add into the program as kind of a bolt on, but now it's considered to be an essential part of any events running. Not just based on the kind of resources used or the materials that are being used, but really in the kind of more holistic approach to event organization, considering all impacts on all levels, including ESG, obviously, so the economic side, indirect and direct, social aspects where we're sourcing, human rights, diversity and inclusions, now super hot topic, human trafficking, and then into sustainability and kind of the usual old school version of environmental aspects in terms of transportation, how to minimize what we're using. Now single-use plastic has been banned in multiple countries. And of course, now carbon footprinting has become an essential in terms of mandatory reporting, in terms of the legislation, certifications that people are now striving for. And so those that are running events are reflecting this in their requests, in their contracts, in what they're looking for from their supply chain and their organizers that are organizing the events. And I think that this has filtered through the entire network of event production. I still sometimes see a bit of resistance in the old schoolers in terms of kind of face-to-face versus hybrid or virtual. Obviously, COVID had a big influence on that twist. So it seems like we kind of got backed into a bit of a corner during COVID and were able to shift quicker, I feel, more into kind of hybrid version of events, which seems to have raised more of an expansion of the understanding of sustainability or what's possible. Still think we have a long way to go. There's many, many certifications and standards out there now to help support people in the industry. And yet the uptake is still on a slow field. And I think that that's often because people can feel overwhelmed, or like I said, it's at the bottom of their very incredibly busy list. And so I think just us making things as easy as possible with standards, implementation guidelines, support, training is really essential at the moment in terms of helping the people that want to do it and need to do it to actually make it happen and make it in an easy way.
Great.
That would be kind of what I feel is where we're at.
Yeah, you've touched on one thing about awareness, that it's only at the awareness level. So I'm going to already say thank you to Glenda, because she and her organization have been really pioneers in all of this, and we'll learn more about that. But in terms of that awareness and moving forward, educating it, getting people started, as we chatted about this earlier, what do you recommend? I mean, like, how does someone get involved? There are things that people think they can do, such as reworking menus or just getting rid of the paper, for example, at an event. But how can someone really make an impact with their action in getting a sustainability strategy started?
Is that a question for myself or for Glenda?
Yeah, for you.
Or...
Yeah, for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, I mean, this is something that I obviously really focus on in terms of strategic planning. I am like, you know, everything is welcome in terms of initiatives, but to really make a holistic change that's relevant and tailored, because obviously every single client, every single organizer has different needs. Also, the events that we create have different impact areas. So for me, it's about really focusing on not trying to do everything perfectly, because that's not going to happen, especially if you're just starting out, but to start out by using kind of my basic 5 steps to strategic implementation, which would just be, first of all, like, look at your aims and objectives, assess where you're making the impacts within whatever it is that you want to create or are creating already, depending on which sector you're moving in and whether you're an established event organizer or someone who's fresh. Assess what those impact areas are, look at what's relevant and achievable. So assess what's possible for you to do at this moment. I always encourage a bit of stretching of kind of out the box thinking in terms of what you'd want to create, and have those things not more than kind of 5 to 10 things initially, or areas, and stretch a little bit of what you'd like to create, but look into what's relevant and achievable. Do a bit of a feasibility check to see what's possible with the budget, what's possible with your supply chain, do networking, get engage your stakeholders to really understand what's possible for everybody who's involved in your network already, and what's important for those people. And then start to organize kind of clear initiatives that you're able to do initially. So get started. So not to feel too daunted by trying to kind of do the whole ISO, the whole GRI, materiality aspects. You know, there's 64 of those guys. So it's like, you're not going to be able to do any of them if you try and do all of them all at once. So just to choose your battles, become focused, create some initiatives, and then actually start to roll them out and really engage your stakeholders, everybody from your suppliers, your venue, your accommodation, your participants, your clients, get everybody on board into these particular aspects, report on it, see where your impact savings are, and then start again and keep building. So it's really a very simple kind of 5-step process to implement some kind of strategic plan, make an action plan, clear, smart goals that are allocated to people, and then review and just keep repeating the process.
So I'm sorry, with that regard, as far as engaging stakeholders, how about, I'm curious just specifically with those people that are decision makers at an organization at the executive level, how do you get that approval? How do you approach that with them? And what have you seen that was successful?
So from my side, the people that I work with and the awareness that is now out there in the industry is much stronger than it ever was. What I notice with decision makers is that normally it comes down to kind of a couple of obstacles. One would be not knowing where to start. The second one would be to do with time. Is this going to take me more time? I don't have much time. The third one is money, budget. Is this going to cost me a lot more to make a sustainable event or not? And then the fourth one would be workload. Like, how much work extra is this going to be? Because often what happens is that these 4 different obstacles, when you navigate them in a way of, first of all, going through these kind of 5 stages of this assessment of the strategy, you notice how much you're already doing. You can look at what's feasible, what's not feasible, what's already available, what's comparable, what's easy to bring in and replace, what you can cut out and actually make savings on. And these things open up possibility and opportunity. I don't believe now that we're in a phase anymore where decision makers do not want sustainability in their event programs or event strategies or in what they're doing. It's more just this overwhelming 4 aspects that can sometimes block to be like, I don't even know where to go with this. And often this fear of even kind of greenwashing, you know, there's 25 things that I'm doing wrong. If I say that I want to run a sustainable event, am I going to be criticized for all of the other things that I'm not doing right? And what should I even choose of this huge, insurmountable experience that I'm having to make things sustainable? And so it's really about making things easy, making things simple, being supportive, offering training, offering the awareness of the empowerment and the engagement that you get through running these initiatives. Sustainability, as I often say, is really about values. It's about something that's connected to what people care about. So wherever you are on the value chain, it has value for the people that you're engaging with, whether it's your buyers, whether it's your suppliers, whether it's your participants. People care. So when you give people an opportunity to contribute to that and remove the 4 obstacles, people are engaged and aware and wanting to do it. And then the more that happens, the more the feedback loop becomes easy.
Great.
Yeah, I really feel like people know now the benefit of it in terms of business case or brand recognition or, you know, marketing angle or, you know, budget savings over long-term investment, sustainability in terms of your own financial business sustainability. Now investors, funders, everybody wants sustainability now has to be part of the business structure at every level. And I think that decision makers know that. They just have obstacles and fears and questions.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. Those 2 points of making it easy. I already breathe easier just thinking about that it doesn't have to be difficult. And the importance of what's in it for me, like why, what are they going to get out of it? Each of your stakeholders. So, okay, let's just shift a little bit. So we're going to move on to our next guest, who I think I've known for about 10 years now, having met her at the annual Exhibitor Live conference in Las Vegas. And she is really a sought after speaker at this conference, and she does teach a class there. She has been actually she's recently retired from HP after I'm gonna have to pause here, 46 years of service, and she has been instrumental in creating experiences and communications to make HP Inc. a recognizable household name. And for that, she has really contributed quite a bit, and really being a part of the team and group that launched a sustainability program, one of really the most well-known, at least in as far as what I know about in the events industry. So it's interesting for us to shift to our next guest. Thank you very much for making this, especially since you're retired, but you're still in great demand. And I think the industry is not going to leave you alone for a while. So let me introduce Glenda Brungard. Glenda, thank you for coming. And let me ask you the same question. Where do you see sustainability in the events industry, given that you've been involved in it for so long?
You bet. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of the discussion and to share the platform with Gail. In the short times that we've been communicating about this session, definitely have learned a lot, in our short conversations. But where we're at and stuff, I think Gail kind of outlined it, is that that awareness stage. And I think some companies, I was fortunate to work for a company that our founders, Bill and Dave, talked about sustainability and being involved in community and all of that way back when they first started the company. So that's kind of been in the HP DNA, and it's kind of, what I grew up in. And, we got serious in sustainability in trade shows and events probably in the early 2000s, and, started really evaluating where we were at, what we wanted to do. And, that was everything from exhibit build to the messages we put out there, how we showed up, things that we were looking to measure. But I think as Gail indicated as she was talking, is that it's, it'll change every event you do, and that so sometimes you may be doing one or two things and just creating some awareness for the people who are attending the event. There's a lot of outside factors that go into kind of what your attendees' knowledge, or even your own team's knowledge, your whole eco vendor team knowledge of what you're doing with events. And sometimes you can take 2 steps forward and you're going to take 10 steps back, but because you took those 2 steps forward, those 2 steps next time are going to be easier. And I've always said that for every 2 steps you take, once you do that over, it's kind of, we all learned how to ride a bike, right? So as you were learning to ride, you had to get yourself back on the bike and do it again and do it again and do it again. And pretty soon you went from being able to go half a block, you went a full block. And, I think that's where we're at in sustainability, is that for every step that we take, every piece that you look at and you add to your program, it just gets easier. And Gail touched upon that it's just not the planet. I think we have to look at sustainability as the planet. And I think that's the one we all navigate to, because it's easy to single-use plastic, get rid of straws. What are we doing around food and beverage menus? But you also have to look at it as the people portion of it. What are we looking at? The DE&I, where's the diversity, the inclusion piece of it, but also what are you doing in community? So when you go into a location and you do an event, what are you doing with the community? What are you giving back to them for allowing you to host your event there? So we kind of looked at sustainability on 3 different pillars going forward. But again, working for a company that sustainability is built through, how we design products, how they produce products, how they ship products. It became part of, what we were doing on a daily basis. I do agree. I think there was a huge myth out there for a period of time that I can't go green because I can't afford it. Well, you learn to shift your budget. You learn to, figure out what's important for you, what's important to your company. You figure out that budget, and you engage with people like Gail, who can help you set that strategy and help you identify where you need to make changes in your program, so that you can bring sustainability into it. Because I agree. I think that attendees are asking for it. I think the world, we see it, and you popped up all those headlines and that, and I will tell you right now, I don't think I can pick up a trade magazine for trade shows and events that somebody isn't talking about sustainability, that somebody isn't announcing somebody got a new LEED certification, or there's a new session like this one being shared out there. So I think it's building back up. I do believe, as Gail said, COVID kind of set us back for a little, but I think we're gaining momentum again, and it's exciting.
I have to say, I'm really proud to be in this industry, because we've really taken sort of like a lead in building sustainable practices and whatnot. So I'm really proud of our industry. I'm going to ask you that same question, and maybe you'll have some concrete things that you might be able to share early on when, this topic of sustainability was not getting the headlines that it is now. When HP started its program, for example, what were some of the things that you thought were easy for the company to do, and what would you recommend for someone now that they should do based on your experience to get
So
started?
I think one of the easiest things to do is reach out to your supply chain. Figure out who in the industry and who you're working with and what they have in place already. Lean into that. Why reinvent the wheel, right? If somebody's already doing something, lean into it. I think sometimes people forget the hotel industry, back in the 90s, when they first started linen reuse, and not doing as much laundry and things like that. Moscone, first convention center in the US that started putting out recycling bins. So look around and have a set of questions ready to go, and ask what your suppliers are already doing. That's the easy part. When you go into a city, think about, are you walking to the venue, or are you taking a taxi? Are you, if you're planning a proprietary event, what are you doing in terms of that? I think there's a lot of things that exist today that I think we've all become accustomed to. That's how we do our daily lives, that we forget that it also, has a sustainability piece to it. But I'm for, don't reinvent the wheel. If something's happening, lean into it, and have them help you obtain your goals.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, is that go to your suppliers, the ones that I'm assuming now, because let's say if I was an event producer, I work with one company, I'm going with my ideas to a supplier, but they're getting hit from many companies. And I think that's a really good thing to point out, is that they're probably being pressed from other sides to come up with ways that they can be sustainable. So thank you for that. That's a really great suggestion.
Yeah, and one thing,
yeah.
let me echo on what Gail, but the whole idea of having that plan. So think about it. You plan, you do, you check, you act. That's, we all learned that in marketing 101, right? You plan, you do, you check, and you act. And if you don't have those stages in place, how do you create an action that you go back and you replan if you're not following those stages?
Great input. So I'm going to open it up a little bit more to both of you. In looking in the future, is like, what are some of the challenges? We know that it's just getting harder with climate change. But two, there's got to be opportunities. I know that as things change, there's windows for things that we can take advantage of. And then finally, what solutions or what types of things do you think that we need to have in place as we move forward? So that's a sort of a 3-point question. So Gail, if you would start, and then we'll go to you, Glenda.
Okay.
Well, it's like 3 massive questions there. So challenges and obstacles, I still feel is maybe behavior change in terms of kind of expectations or what we like to do on events, or this kind of like the lavishness, I suppose, that we've got accustomed to in terms of the event industry. So some of it is kind of allowing the real awareness of sustainability and the importance of it to infiltrate into all layers of that, and just, the change, shifting the mentality, I think is still an obstacle. So more awareness, more education, more training, making things simple, promote that would be kind of the solution for that. In terms of support, I think that there's not enough support for the industry, which is what we've been focusing on, especially at the Event Industry Council, in terms of kind of standards, so people can benchmark where they are, create some goals, and as Glenda said, having this plan to execute actions, checking, moving forward. So it's about kind of having this structure that you can then follow in stages, and also having clear support guidelines, simple training products like myself. I have on my website like a basic 10-step online training course from everything that I've learned. Then obviously there's the SEPC course under the Event Industry Council. Now there's certifications everywhere. There's really not really an excuse anymore to not get training in sustainability. So I would say there's the challenge of that, and also the solution of that within the same kind of context. I think also challenges in terms of, there's a dying of some of the aspects of the event industry that needs to happen, and an increase of this beautiful opportunity. Now we see the market demand completely shifting, and so the supply chain is shifting with it. And this is one thing that I've really noticed in my 15 years of doing this, is really how the supply chain mirrors the market demand. So we really have power as buyers and as organizers to create the change that we want in our value chain, in our supply chain, so both, up and downstream, to say what we need and what we want, and including that in our strategies, our policies, our RFPs, our contractual agreements. This is what we need from you guys. How can we support each other to be more sustainable? So for me, it's kind of like the obstacles are kind of overcomeable by these solutions of collaboration, of working together, of streamlining a lot of what we do also at the Event Industry Council, and internationally with the other people that I work with that even are not under EIC, is really coming together and like streamlining. How do we make sure that the whole industry as a whole are working together towards sustainability, no matter which certification or which standards they're doing, what what way they're getting there, but how do we really work together and keep the communication open and not be too competitive with each other, but really supporting the whole industry to move forward as a whole. And I think that that's where success lies, is in really kind of like not stomping over each other, but really how do we know the industry needs the change. So how do we really work together? And the solutions for that are dialogue, communications, supporting each other's initiatives, working together, you know, to support and offer training that's relevant to each of the other certifications. For example, we were just part of the ISO feedback process. And so, you know, ISO is one of the top certifications that, you know, events can go for. So then, you know, how do we create packages and training and stuff as part of the Event Industry Council to support people to get to that phase whilst not overwhelming them too fast? You know, what's the timeline for us as an industry, and how do we all work together? They would be my top obstacle solution vibes.
Yeah, excellent. And then how about you, Glenda? What's your input?
Yeah, so I agree. I think the three things I look at, so first of all, transparency. You know, let's be transparent about what's going on and let's have that conversation. Number two is let's have the conversation. But when that table is put together to have that conversation, you got to invite everybody. You know, there cannot be a hierarchy there. And I think in many parts of our industry, and speaking from being on the bottom of the food chain normally as an exhibitor, we're the ones who pay the bills. Bring us to the table. We have a lot of great ideas. We have a lot of things that our companies do. Allow us to be part of that conversation and part of the solution. And then the last thing for me is the consistency. Where are we at? And you know, when you think about how do you put a measurement so that you can decide, you know, to have a gap, are you doing something right? Or, you know, and don't look at it as I'm doing something wrong. Look at it as I have an opportunity to do something different. You know, so because I think people say, well, you're doing a bad job there. They always think, you know, it's you get that F on your test paper. It's that opportunity to do something differently. And we need that. But, you know, early on when some of the measurements first came out, don't have a technical background, yet those measurements read that I needed to be an engineer in order to implement them. And we've got to make things simple.
Yeah.
You know, and because if you don't keep them simple, people are going to say, why should I measure? I don't have the time. You know, Gail said all event managers and producers, we're strapped with time. So if something's complicated, it's going to be tougher to get it, you know, as part of our everyday process, but keep it simple.
Yeah, definitely measurement. For us as marketers in event marketing, that is like number one. You've got to have your data together.
Yeah.
But thank you for letting me know that I've been on the bottom of the food chain.
Seriously, being an exhibitor, sometimes I think of that, you know, hey, you want our money, but
yeah,
you have a voice. Let us be that voice.
You're so spot on. Okay, so a couple questions that I have, just, you know, as being someone who's attempted sustainability programs, twofold is the certification, like how, maybe just clarify like what that's about, meaning I want to get certified. Where do I go? Which is the right one? How would I think about doing that? And the second part is the measurement. How would we approach that?
Sure. I mean, I can answer if that's good. So there's a lot of certifications out there that I believe are created for different particular niches. So it's about finding the right certification for your particular niche. So even with the event industry, there are certifications that are based on the cruise line industry. There are based on the MICE sector. There are some that are specific to creating kind of impact more in the social sector. Now, obviously, at the Event Industry Council, we've expanded the standards in these last couple of years. We've spent a lot of time making sure that they're neutral. Obviously, we're all doing this for kind of a non-profit experience. Sorry if you can hear the dog barking in the background, by the way, or
You're
the
good.
chickens. Yeah, so it's, you know, there's been an expansion of this. So now we have standards that are relevant to venues, that are relevant to accommodation, that are relevant to supply chain, to you know, different levels of the industry itself. So we've tailored through utilizing the committee members like Glenda is speaking about, inviting people into the committee that have an awareness, not just from, you know, event organization aside, but all the way through the value chain that have been part of that process of feedback, and it's gone on for periods of time. And the certifications are have different layers. So there's the basic kind of foundations level, and then you can work up through the certifications as you evolve. And then as you move upwards, you can also go for kind of external auditing and these other kinds of things as well.
Mhm.
There's also obviously things like ISO 2012-1. So this is kind of more the kind of how we see it, like the high-end version of certification, right? So the bottom end, I believe, would be like getting a certification from someone like myself who has downloaded all of my knowledge and awareness into a simple 10-step online course that's like a couple of €100, and you get a lot of awareness about what to do, how to do it, how to implement strategy, and how to do these things, right? It's like basic how to get started. Then you have, okay, now I'm ready to make some commitments. I'm going to do the foundations of the Event Industry Council, and then I'm going to work my way up. Then when you're in some kind of established, you have more resources, more manpower, more energy to put into sustainability as part of your whole infrastructure, whether it's as part of an event you're organizing or your organization itself, then you move on to something like ISO. So for me, it's about just monitoring where you are and choosing a certification that's relevant to you. Some of the clients I work for, I don't go to put them towards ISO. I work with them on something like Travel Life or the GFGC certifications, because it's more relevant to their buyers, their suppliers, and their clients than other certifications. So it's really, there's a lot of niches there. And the point specifically of the Event Industry Council, and I'm not like employed by the Event Industry Council, by the way. I'm just a massive advocate, and I've been part of this committee and the strategy build and everything for years. And there's such a focus there of bringing people together, like Glenda's saying. Like, it's really like a philanthropic care for the industry to get as many bums on seats as we can and work together to create. So we're not reinventing the wheel all the time, and we're not pushing people down different pathways, but we're all working together. Positive Impact do amazing stuff in terms of, you know, making commitments with the UN SDGs. There's so many different organizations that are advocating for this. And I think, you know, the most important thing is to do something.
Yeah, I agree.
If everybody does something, then we're getting somewhere, right? So,
Well,
that's awesome.
And just to add on to that is that it doesn't always have to be a certification of a CTSM or something, initials behind your name, but just taking a class, putting together a plan. To me, that is that self-certification. I did something, I learned something. And, you know, especially around sustainability, it changes, you know, on a daily basis when you think about where we're at in the industry, and that is, but certify yourself, you know, by becoming more knowledgeable about what's going on in the industry and what's available.
Great. And that final point, measurement, maybe you want to take a stab at that, Glenda?
Yeah, so I think measurement, you know, as Gail had talked about earlier, first of all, we need to be consistent, because what I measure, I see Al Macuro's on, so what Al measures, what Gail measures, we may all be measuring something different. But in order for the industry to continue to advance and stuff, we need to be measuring something that's consistent and that we're able to all report it in the same manner. that we're all looking at it in the same manner. And it can be
Yep.
as simple as, we created a program called Actions Create Impact at HP, and we had 3 levels. So you could be conscious, meaning you're very well aware what's going on around sustainability, the choices you were making in your program. You could be engaged, so you had, instead of 10 questions, you did 30 questions. Or you could be the champion, where you went all in and put together reporting and stuff and work with your vendors. So again, what do you do? With that, you can do it internally, but also what are we doing externally?
Gosh, you guys were coming up to the end of our time.
We could go on for another
just
hour.
me personally. Yes, I mean, just we've
3
touched upon
days, I think,
so
Glenn.
many
Yeah.
things. Which just makes me think is that we've got to bring this back, at least in this series. So I will be coming back to you guys. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna do a few household cleanings announcements here. Is that for those of you that would like to partake, please join our LinkedIn group, and you could mix and network with anybody that's in there, but it is specific to anyone that's attended or presented in this series. So if you look for Second Tuesday events for event professionals, quote unquote graduates, you will find that group. Just make a request to join, and we'll have you join the group. And then the next episode, episode 4, please register for that. We're going to have John Chen. I don't know how many of you know him, but he's an amazing speaker based out of Seattle. And he's going to be giving us a year-end wrap-up, sort of reflections on all the things that have happened in the event industry that we need to think about going into 2024. And then, yeah, as you exit this survey, or rather this event, there's going to be a survey that's going to pop up. So please complete that if you would. And with that, both Gail and Glenda, thank you so very much. We're going to have Thanksgiving next week here in the States. And then there's going to be St. Nick's Day in Germany. And then there's so many other holidays coming after that. So if I don't get a chance to link up with any of you here, happy holidays. So thank you very much, and we'll pick this up again.